welcome. This is PentaLive from PentaLog, where we bring you discussions about tools and techniques that you can use not only to survive, but to thrive in the COVID-19 era. This is Peter Green in New York, and I'm here with Aurelia Tudor, who is coming to us from Bucharest, where she runs an organization or a company called, sorry, I'm going crazy.
SkillValue. Hello to everybody.
Hi, and a SkillValue, and it's the HR recruiting arm of PentaLog. And most of what Aurelia has been doing has been remote, so she's got a lot of information and observations to bring to people who may now be trying to build a team remotely or offshore their work and wonder, how do I know that the people they're finding for me who exist only on a computer screen are real and interesting and capable of doing the job, and most of all, will get along with my team and understand my needs. So, Aurelia, thank you. Tell us a little bit about recruiting. I mean, what changes when you can't actually meet the job candidates?
Hello, Peter. Hello to everybody. A lot of things change when you can't meet the candidate, but what really change actually what needs to change, it's your mindset. Because if we are speaking about a remote process, or if we are speaking about a recruitment process, the process will be the same. Meaning that the process itself, if you had 4 interviews in a face-to-face process, you will still have 4 interviews in a remote process. What changes is our feelings about it and our fears to take a decision where we are online, where we are not meeting the person in face-to-face, in a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that really at the core of it? You know, when we make decisions about people we want to work with, we're talking not just somebody who can do a job, but somebody we'd like to feel good about. We want to, if we're working in an office with that person, we don't want to spend 8 or 10 hours a day being miserable, personally and socially miserable. We'd like it to be a better experience. We want to be able to see eye to eye, to have conversations, to not have to be on guard all the time. And yet, when you deal with someone remotely, it's a very two-dimensional experience. So, you know, tell me a little more about how that works. How do you make, how do you understand a candidate when they're just sitting in front of you in a remote interview and you can't gauge their reactions, their humor, their bad breath?
I agree with you that being in front of a camera gives us a sentiment of distance. So it's a little bit harder to take a decision and to see if the candidate that we have in front of us may be the right fit for me, for my team, for my company, and so on. So what we are trying to do, it's by digitalizing the process, it's to try to use different methods in order to be more objective. And in the end, being more objective, I would say that we can recruit better because we are not subjective. When we are seeing the candidate in face-to-face, sometimes we tend to take a decision, or most of the time we take a subjective decision. So actually what I propose is to redefine the way that you are doing the interview itself. So maybe to try to approach different the interview and to use at the same time a scoring system that will allow you at the end to compare your candidates to see which candidates it's more good or for your organization and for your.
So what do you score people on? And how is that different when you're doing it remotely than, when they would be coming in for an interview?
Actually, the scoring system, it's something that you can use in face-to-face and you can use remotely. We are talking a little bit more now about this scoring system because it brings a little bit more objectivity and reassure ourselves that we can take the decision and hire the candidate, because this is the problem, taking the decision and reassuring ourselves in this process. So what I propose, it's actually building a scorecard. What I call a scorecard, it's a tool that allows us to collect quantitative and qualitative data following the interview. So by building a scorecard, I'm meaning better defining the need with my client or my internal hiring manager. In the same time, it's defining, when I'm speaking about defining the need, it's really see what are the mandatory competencies that I look for. So the must-have of my candidates. And why I'm speaking about mandatory and must-have, because I always define with my client what I call a minimum viable candidate. It means the core competencies that a candidate must have in order to be able to do the job. And we list these competencies together with my client. We for sure, we define also the nice to have skills. So the pluses that the candidate may have. But the process of defining the minimum viable candidate with his pluses helped me in this process to better understand the client need, but in the same time to set his expectation. And why I'm speaking about setting his expectation, as a recruiter, I always receive a job description with a lot of criteria and a lot of criteria. And I know that in the market, this type of profile doesn't exist. So I try to really see which is the need, what is the need, and to see how could I answer quicker to my client and find a tailored solution for him. We are in a really competitive market, so we really need to understand, to act quickly, and to define a set of core competencies to recruit today. And this is a part actually of building a scorecard. So I define the needs, I list all the competencies, and I, for each competencies, I see which one is mandatory and which one it's a nice to have in order to better understand the profile and to recruit quicker.
So I guess part of that is not setting yourself too much of a limit on your expectations, because even if you're interviewing these people remotely and they're just two-dimensional objects on a screen, they still are people who may have capabilities that haven't been tested yet, or they just don't bother to mention that they also know how to do X, you know.
Yes.
And so they may not look on paper perfect, but as you talk to them, how do you draw them out? What's your strategy for building the kind of rapport you need to draw out a client, an interviewee, I mean?
Okay, for the interview itself, I first of all define, as I said, with my client the scorecard. So that means listing all the needs, defining an expected level for each skill. And what I mean by expected level, I use, for example, Dreyfus scale for the evaluation. So it's defining a rating system. So I expect to have an intermediate PHP developer. So his mandatory skills will be PHP 7 and object-oriented programming, let's say. So I will define level 3 for this skill. After that, I will also give weight for each skill based on the profile that I already defined. And I also list a lot of questions for each skill. This is the creation of the scorecard that I do before the interview. During the interview, I use this scorecard, but during the interview, I really pay attention to the conversation. I don't question the candidates, and I just putting my questions. I'm integrating my questions in the interview. I'm using actually a semi-structure, what it's called in the HR, a semi-structured interview. So I'm integrating my question in the conversation in order to see what are the candidate capabilities, who he is as a person, and in the same time, I need to sell my job. So at the end, we have a conversation in the remote interview. It's a conversation that has a base, that has some predefined questions, but the way that we are integrating in the speech this question make this feel natural and gives room for the candidate to express himself, and to give you all the insights that you may need.
Huh. Wow, that's interesting. I think Christelle, our producer in Brittany, has a question for us from France.
Yes.
Go ahead, Christelle.
Yes, I do. We have a question in the comments. Is the demand for candidates changing right now in the IT world because of what's happening with the COVID or any other reason? Like, is it changing currently?
If we are speaking about the numbers of demands, no. This is not changing. We still have the same number of demands. What is changing? It's actually the type of profiles that we are recruiting in this moment. Before COVID, we were recruiting a lot of developers, PHP, Java, a lot of developers. Now we recruit more database administrators, security analysts, security engineers, and system administrators. So a lot of profiles that are more on the infrastructure part that assure that all of us, we can work remotely and we can work in a safe way remotely without being hacked and so on.
And because of the current crisis and situation, do you feel like people are asking more like for senior level? Like, is there a change in the level that is requested or?
Yes, people are asking more about seniors, but this is a small change because before COVID, we also recruited mostly senior profiles. Now, yes, it's true that the expectations are higher because meeting the person remotely, sometimes you set the expectation higher to reassure yourself that this profile will be the right profile for your company. So yes, we are looking for senior profiles, and I think 90% of our demands are senior profiles.
And just to finish with my questions really quick, is it better to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it better to do a remote recruiting in the end? And if yes, why?
Yes, it is better because actually it adds speed to the process. We are on a market that is highly competitive, and it's a market where it's a candidate-driven market. It's not a company-driven market. So in order to recruit, you need to be fast. An IT guy has 3 offers on the table in 1 week. So you really need to add speed to your process. And the remote recruitment does that. It adds speed to your process because the candidate, it may be available today or tomorrow. He don't need to commute, so to come to a face-to-face interview. So it involves less time from his side, so he can be available sooner. Your client too, he can also be available sooner. So it adds a lot of speed to the process. And I look at the data from April, and we used to recruit 1 person in 3.5 weeks. Starting March, I see that it's to recruit 1 people in 1.5, 2 weeks. This is the average now. So it adds speed, so it's better to do the process remotely.
Thank you.
Alina,
Thank
just
you.
to put some of the Aurelia, just put some of this in perspective. we were talking about the leverage that the prospective employee has in the game because they often get many offers. You were talking with me the other day about just the number of jobs that are available for developers and compared to the much smaller number of developers out there,
Yes.
Particularly in the United States.
In the United States and all over the world, it's the same in Europe. Yes, the developers are really hunted, and I can say hunted. And as a developer, as I said also to Christelle, you receive a lot of offers. For example, even if you don't look for a job and you have a LinkedIn profile, and you have some technology, not a developed, so not really a CV on LinkedIn, so just some info, and your job title is Java developer or security analyst or things that are related to IT, you will receive around 10 invitations to new companies or to change your job from recruiters daily.
Wow.
So it.
You know what? That's not happening.
It's really a tough market.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. This is not happening in the HR either.
That's really interesting. But what do you do? We were talking about the incentives that you have to offer prospective employees to make them want to stay with you. That
yes,
that they have a lot of developers in particular have an image of themselves as doing something kind of new and exciting and cutting edge. And you have to play to that. Is that as easy to do remotely as it is directly? And how do you do that?
I think this process doesn't change. The developers aim to be intellectually challenged. They like to solve puzzles. They are always looking to work with the latest technology, and they are interested about the product they developed, how this product maybe contributes to the world. So you really need to sell your product, the business, and also it's really important during the interview to present them how they can evolve, how they can develop their competencies. So during an interview, you really need to sell your opportunity, and not just during the interview. During the whole process, from screening the candidate to the recruitment, you really need to sell your opportunity, to try to understand what he is looking for, and to sell the company culture that you have. You really need to offer them the whole package, that it's not just salary. They are well paid, all of them. So you really need to be able to explain them what is in your company there for them, what is their challenge from a technical point of view.
So let me get more fundamental questions about why offshoring is a good idea for tech companies. And I'm guessing one of the things that's happening now is that with all this remote stuff, with companies from Facebook and Twitter to others saying work at home, it really doesn't matter which country the person's working from home in. So if you're an IT manager, CIO, CTO, et cetera, and you're reinventing yourself in the post-COVID-19 world, offshoring is what? What are the advantages there? Is it a cost advantage, or is it a skills advantage, a mobility, agility advantage? What's the...
Okay, first of all, for example, one of PentaLive main stops, it's Romania and Moldova and Vietnam as well. We have very good developers in Romania. So one of the advantage, and we are known in the world for that. So one of the advantages is the skill and the quality of the skill. We really have good developers. We have good universities that prepare these developers for the professional life. Another one, it's the cost. a salary in Romania is 3 times lower than the one in the United States. So it will cost you 3 times less to work with someone from Romania, for example. So the cost, it's another thing. And I'm coming back to the skill because when I'm speaking about the skill, I have some inside info, and we in SkillValue we have some inside info because we have a testing platform. It's actually a technical testing platform. We have over 600 technical tests that allows developers for all over the world to test themselves, and we have built a community of around 400,000 members that have passed around, I don't know, 2 million tests on our platform. So we have a solid benchmark, and we are making each year a top of the countries with developers. And last year, for example, Romania scored better than France and other European countries that have a tradition, let's say, in this field and have good universities. So the skill, it's really, really good. So the competencies that developers have here in Romania, it's good, and the price, it's also good. I think also in Romania we still have room to recruit, and we are able to recruit quicker than we do it in United States.
So well, if a company sees, well, this is great to recruit people in Romania, is it better for them to recruit by themselves, to use you to recruit, or to use you to assemble teams that you've recruited that then work for them, with you guys, with an offshoring company like yourself or any other managing the team? What are the challenges and what's the advantage to having an offshoring manager managing the team?
The advantage is that you have someone that cares for the team and that it's here to solve all the problems of the team. And in Agile, what we call the manager of the team, it's the Scrum Master. So it's really good to have a local Scrum Master that cares for the team. So in terms of managing the team in Romania or in another country that you will build your team, it's really good to have a manager on site that will take care of the team, that will assure that all the processes are in place and so on. So it's good to have a manager on site, but this manager needs to have a good contact with the client and needs to really be close to the client. This is about the managing the team. About recruiting the team, if they must to recruit themselves the team, if they need to make appeal to SkillValue and SkillValue recruit for them, or PentaLive recruit for them, I think it's better, even if it's SkillValue, PentaLive, or it's in another country, they decide to outsource in another country, I think they need to use a local agency that really knows the market, that has a good database, and that can answer to their need quickly. It's difficult if tomorrow I start to recruit on a new market, knowing how the IT market is in the world. It will be really difficult for me to build a team in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, for example. And in PentaLive and SkillValue, we have the capacity to build a team in 3 weeks, for example.
Okay. So ultimately, what's, just to sum up the difference, is there any difference in how COVID and working more remotely has changed the way the recruiting process works for IT?
As a recruitment agency, we are using remote recruitment for years now. I think 2 years now. So for me, it doesn't change. For my clients, yes, it's changing because they need to change their mindset and they need to have the courage to take the decision based on an online conversation. And we are here to help them develop the tools to be able to take, let's say, a more data-driven decision and a more objective decision through a remote recruitment process.
Wow. Well, Aurelia, thank you very, very much for joining us. I hope this was useful to our listeners. This is Peter Green in New York with PentaLive from PentaLog. Thank you to Aurelia Tudor in Bucharest and Christelle Lazo in Brittany.
Thank you.